Xingqiu has been a top-tier sub-DPS and Hydro support since release, and that still holds true today. With the release of 3.0, the introduction of Dendro, and the changes to Hydro Resonance provide new synergies to Xingqiu while still maintaining, if not strengthening, his existing ones. He's one of the best 4-star units to have on your account, and since he's rated up on the current banner, whether you don't have him yet or are looking for some constellations, you have a chance to get him if you're pulling on it. He's also in the Star Glitter shop this month for a guaranteed copy. Getting right into his kit, his normal attacks are nothing special and will be rarely if ever used unless you're a hardcore Xingqiu main. His skill deals 2 slashes of Hydro damage and summons rain swords that orbit the character. At C0, the number of these swords is 3. They provide some interruption resistance, and when a character takes damage, a sword will shatter, reducing damage taken. The damage reduction has a base value depending on talent level, as well as an additional 20% of Xingqiu's Hydro damage bonus. They will apply wet status to Xingqiu when he executes the skill, so can be used as a cleanse for a Pyro aura, but can apply Electro Charge or Frozen to himself if you're not careful. They can also apply wet status to enemies if you get close enough to them. It has pretty high multipliers and is the primary source of energy for Xingqiu, especially if he's the only Hydro on the team. But it has a long cooldown of 21 seconds, so it's very important that his skill doesn't miss. His Elemental Burst summons the same rain swords with the same properties as his skill, but these ones don't shatter, so the interruption resistance and damage reduction stay active for the entire duration of his burst. It also sends out waves of rain swords alongside your active character's normal attacks, dealing Hydro damage and applying Hydro every wave, making Xingqiu the fastest Hydro applicator in the game. Also note that the normal attack animation is what triggers the rain swords, not a hit, so they still work with Raiden's burst. It also has a lengthy cooldown at 20 seconds, but it does line up with his skill. And it has a high energy cost of 80, which causes Xingqiu to have some pretty hefty energy needs, but that can be alleviated with the right artifacts and weapons, as well as his 6th constellation. His first Ascension passive provides a bit of healing based on Xingqiu's max HP when a rain sword shatters or expires, and his 4th Ascension passive grants him 20% Hydro damage bonus, which is amazing not only for the extra damage, but also for the additional damage reduction it can provide. His base passive is a 25% chance to refund a portion of materials when crafting talent level materials, which isn't a lot, but can come in clutch when he gives you that one you need to craft another. All of Xingqiu's constellations are great and only increase his value, however, none of them are necessary to have a fully functioning Xingqiu. His first constellation increases the maximum number of rain swords from 3 to 4, which doesn't sound like much, but it provides that extra bit of damage reduction and healing. C2 is one of his best constellations as it extends the duration of his burst by 3 seconds, as well as decreasing the Hydro resistance of enemies hit by his rain swords, increasing his own damage as well as that of any other Hydro unit on your team. C3 increases his burst level by 3, great for extra rain sword damage. His 4th constellation increases the damage of his skill by a whopping 50% when used during his burst, incentivizing players to follow his burst with his skill rather than the other way around. But don't worry about Xingqiu funneling away the particles produced by doing this, since he gets them during the animation of his skill. C5 adds 3 levels to his skill for extra damage and extra damage reduction. And his C6 is worded a bit vaguely, but essentially what it does is it changes the pattern of his rain swords from waves of 2, 3, 2, 3, with each wave applying Hydro once, to 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, meaning the 3rd wave will deal extra damage and apply Hydro twice. The 3rd wave also regenerates 3 energy for Xingqiu, which can greatly reduce his energy needs. Before I talk about artifacts, let's address Xingqiu's energy. His energy recharge requirements can range anywhere from 200 to 250%. The actual amount needed can be reduced by his C6 if you're running him with Raiden and or another Hydro unit, as well as a Refinement 3 or higher sacrificial sword, so you'll need more or less depending on your specific setup, but do keep in mind that energy recharge is one of his highest priorities no matter what, as having his burst up off cooldown is of the utmost importance, and not having it when you need it will result in a substantial DPS loss. That being said, his best artifact set at higher energy requirements is definitely the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate. The 2-piece effect gives 20% energy recharge, helping him with his energy needs, and the burst damage increase from the 4-piece effect is significant since you're building him for high energy recharge anyway. It's also in, still as of yet, the most resin efficient domain. The set itself doesn't do much for his skill, but since it has high multipliers anyway, with decent enough substats it will still do a lot of damage. Other sets you can use if you don't have a 4-piece emblem set are 2-piece combinations of Emblem, Noblesse, Heart of Depth, and 18% attack sets, which can all perform similarly depending on substats. At lower AR, 2-piece combinations of Exile and Scholar, and even Braveheart or Resolution of Sojourner for the extra energy recharge and attack can all work until you can get 5-star artifacts. For stats, your sands will depend on your weapon, constellations, team comp, and artifact substats. Ideally, if you can meet his energy needs from those sources, you would run an attack sands, but an energy recharge sands can be used if you can't, as once again, not having his burst off cooldown is not worth sacrificing energy recharge for offensive stats no matter how tempting it might be. The goblet should always be hydro damage bonus, not only for the extra damage, but also for the additional damage reduction, and then a crit rate or damage circlet to get a 1:2 ratio. 50 to 100 is the ideal base target, but don't focus too heavily on crit if you don't have enough energy recharge. Substats are, you guessed it, energy recharge, up to whatever you need to get his burst off cooldown, then crit rate and damage, and attack percent. When it comes to weapons, Xingqiu has a lot of options, but unfortunately not many of his best ones are incredibly free-to-play friendly. However, that doesn't mean you can't have a very well invested and high-performing free-to-play Xingqiu. Offensive weapons like Jade Cutter and Mist Splitter are amazing for their crit stats and damage potential, provided you can meet Xingqiu's energy requirements from artifacts. The Skyward Blade is also a great choice for its high base attack and energy recharge substat, and in fact, Xingqiu is one of the best users of this sword in general. His best 4-star option is the Sacrificial Sword, specifically at Refinement 3 or higher, as it has a high energy recharge substat, and you can get a second use of his skill for of course more damage, but also twice as many particles, allowing him to battery himself quite well, reducing or even eliminating the need to run an energy recharge sands in favor of an attack sands. At lower refinements, the cooldown of the weapon's passive doesn't line up with his skill cooldown, but you can still use it, you'll just only be benefiting from it every other rotation. Favonia's Sword is a good option if you don't have Sacrificial, as it has the same stats, and though the passive isn't as good for Xingqiu as Sac Sword, he still benefits from the energy recharge and the extra particles it can produce. If you have both though, Sac Sword is better. If you don't have any of the previously mentioned weapons, you can use the craftable Aminoma Kageuchi. The attack it provides is great, and though you won't be able to get all the stacks on the passive, at Refinement 5, even if you only get 1 stack, it will give you back 12 energy, reducing the cost of his burst significantly. And at low AR, if you haven't gotten a suitable 4-star weapon yet, the 3-star Skyrider Sword is perfect for its energy recharge substat in the early game. As far as teams go, Xingqiu is a pretty flexible unit, being able to fit into just about any team that needs a Hydro unit and or sub-DPS in general. As I mentioned earlier, thanks to the changes to Hydro Resonance, he enables units who benefit either directly or indirectly from increased HP, like Ayato, Kokomi, and most notably Yelan, who with Xingqiu makes an incredibly powerful pair. Xingqiu is also one of the best Vaporize enablers for Pyro units like Yoimiya, Yanfei, Diluc, and of course Hu Tao, who pretty much needs Xingqiu as he's the only one whose Hydro application can keep up with her to vape all of her charged attacks. Double Hydro Hu Tao vape teams with Xingqiu and Yelan are also fantastic, thanks to Hu Tao not only benefiting from the Hydro application, but the increased HP from the new Hydro Resonance. Other double Hydro teams as well as mono Hydro teams are also enhanced by Xingqiu thanks to his Hydro Resistance Shred. Xingqiu can be used in freeze teams, though not always being the best option because of his single target nature, but a usable one nonetheless. Your main DPS will have to rely or partially rely on normal attacks to proc the Rain Swords though, so a quick swap freeze team wouldn't be the best for him. He is also of course a key component of certain national comps, most notably the Rational and Sucrose variants. And what about Dendro? Well, he can be an okay option for Bloom teams, but he applies Hydro incredibly fast, and our current Dendro units have a hard time keeping up with him. As well, his healing is minimal and might not be able to keep up with the self-bloom damage if you're not careful. So generally a slower Hydro applier such as Kokomi, who also heals a ton, will generally be better. Hyper Bloom teams, however, are a bit bit more suited to Xingqiu thanks to the way Electro interacts with the reaction, making it a better option if you want to put Xingqiu in a Dendro reaction team. New characters and the mechanics they bring with them might allow for more synergies in the future though. So Xingqiu continues to be an incredibly strong and flexible unit, with 3.0 and Dendro only making him even more so. All that said, if you don't have Xingqiu yet, go get him and build him. You won't regret it. As always, thank you so much for watching, like and subscribe for more videos to come, and I will see you next time.